Okay, this week we are looking at converting between fractions, percentages and decimals. So to start off with, we're going to look at turning from fractions into a percentage. So let's say I started off with a fraction like 7/25, and I want to turn that into a percentage. Well, what I need to remember in this case is that a percentage, the word percent means out of 100. So if we turn this into a fraction with a denominator of 100, we've automatically turned it into a percent. So using our equivalent fraction rules, if we remember that to go from 25 as my denominator to 100 as my denominator, I have times by 4. So if I do the same to the top, that will give me 28 hundredths. And as we said earlier, out of 100 is just the same as percent. So that's the same as 28%. So from here, once we've got our answer into a percentage, or even as a fraction over 100, it's fairly simple to then convert that into a decimal. Because if we think about it, 28% is the same as 28 over 100. That's the same as 28 divided by 100. So if we take 28 and we divide it by 100, we get the answer 0.28. So once you've got it as a percentage, all you need to do is divide that number by 100 and you'll get your decimal. Right, let's have a look at a slightly harder fraction to convert then. This time I've got a third. Hopefully we should be able to see there's not going to be a nice round whole number we can multiply 3 by to get a nice 100 denominator. So this time we're going to have to take a different approach. If we think about this fraction, 1/3, this line means divide, means 1 divided by 3. So what we can do is we can set up a little bus stop. Division, we're taking 1, we're dividing by 3. How many 3's go into 1? Well, 0 3's go into 1. So to continue our division, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a decimal point in both our answer and the number we're dividing by. We're going to add a couple of zeros afterwards. So how many 3's go into 1? 0. Your remainder is 1. Put a little 1 there. This becomes a 10. How many 3's go into 10? 3 of them do. 3 times 3 is 9. Again, your remainder is 1. How many 3's go into 10? 3. And you should notice that's going to keep going and going and going forever. So you're going to have a big long line of 3's. We call that 0.33 recurring. So this time I've turned it into a decimal first of all. That's 0.33. And I can put a little dot above the second 3 to show it goes on and on and on. Once we've got it into a decimal, we can then turn that into a percentage. If you remember before, when we went from percentage to decimal, we divided our percentage by 100 to get the decimal. So to go back the other way, all we need to do is we need to multiply our decimal by 100, which is going to give us 33%. It's actually going to be 33.33 recurring percent, but 33% is a close enough approximation. Thinking about going the other way then, let's say I started with 0.27 and I want to turn that into a percentage and a fraction. The first thing I would do is the first easy step is to turn it into a percentage. To go from any decimal into a percentage, all you need to do is times it by 100. So 0.27 times 100 is going to give me 27%. Then remembering what percent means, we can turn that really simply into a fraction by just putting it over 100. Then we can see, is there going to be a number we can divide both the top and the bottom by to simplify this fraction? In this case, the numbers I can divide 27 by are 1, 3, and 9. I can't divide either. You can't divide 100 by either 3 or 9. Dividing by 1 would give me the same fraction. So I know that is as simple as it can be. So I know that 0.27 is the same as 27% and 27 over 100. And if we start with a percentage instead, let's say, for example, I started with 34%, and I wanted to turn that into a decimal and a fraction. Well, again, to turn it into a decimal, really simple. This time we're going to divide by 100 to get my decimal, which will give me 0.34. Remembering what percent means, we can really easily turn that into a fraction by just putting it with 100 as the denominator. In this case, however, we should be able to see that we're definitely going to be able to simplify this fraction. So we need a number that we can divide 34 by and 100 by. In this case, we can see they're both even, so we can divide them both by 2, which will give me 17 over 50. And we should be able to see that there's not going to be a number we can divide 17 and 50 by, so that fraction is as simple as it will get. And that is our decimal equivalent. Moving on then to finding percentages of an amount. So let's say, for example, we had the question, I want to find 20% of 350. Now, sometimes you're seeing it with an of, sometimes it might be seen as 20% times 350. They both mean the same thing. So to find the percentage of amount, there's two real ways we can tackle this. The first way, and the way I would recommend, is we start off by finding 10% of whatever our amount is. Now, to find 10% of any number, it's really simple. All you need to do is divide the number by 10. Because if you think about it, the whole amount, 350, is the same as 100%. That's one whole. So to get 10% of it, we need to divide 100 by 10. So if I divide 350 by 10, so 10% of 350 will give me 35. Then working from there, if I know what 10% is, I can very easily find 20%. If we think to go from 10 to 20, we've just doubled. So 20% will be double 10%, which will be 70. That's the first way of doing it. The other way you could do it is, instead of going to 10% first of all, you find 1% of your total amount. So again, if 350 is 100%, it's the whole amount. To find 1%, we're going to need to divide this by 100. So we need to divide 350 by 100, which will give us 3.5. Then to find 20% of 350, what we're going to have to do is we're going to go from 1% to 20%, we've times by 20. So we're going to need to do 3.5 times 20, which will give us the same answer of 70. So let's try a slightly harder percentage. This time we've got 32% of 1,200. So again, if we try the first method, I like to start by finding 10% of a number. And as we mentioned before, to find 10% of any number, you divide that number by 10, which will be 120. My next jump, fairly logically, because I'm trying to get up to 32%, so a nice easy jump would be to 30% of 1,200. So to go from 10 to 30, we've multiplied by 3, so we just need to multiply my answer over here by 3 to give me 360. I'm then looking to find 2%. So two ways I could do that. I could either go to 1% first of all and then double it, but I'm just going to jump straight to 2%. Because I know that to go from 10% to 2%, I've divided by 5. So all I need to do is take my answer for 10% and divide it by 5. So we need to do 120 divided by 5. We know 100 divided by 5 is 20. 20 divided by 5 is 4. So that my answer will be 24. Then the last step I need to do is to find 32%. 1,200. Well, all I need to do is add together my answer for 30% and my answer for 2%. So if I add those two together, it's going to give me 384. So that's the way I prefer to do it, in nice, simple, clear jumps. But there's another way I'm about to show you as well. So again, the second way you can do it is by straight away going to 1% of 1,200. And as we discussed previously, to find 1% of any number, you need to divide that number by 100. So 1,200 divided by 100 is going to be 12. Then to jump straight to 32%, of 1,200? Well, I should be able to see that to go from 1% to 32%, I've multiplied by 32. So all I need to do is take my answer and times it by 32. So again, we can do a quick multiplication here. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 is 2. 3 is 2. So again, my answer is exactly the same, 384. Hope this helped.